I suppose climate change, means different things to different people. But, as a farmer and a rancher and somebody who depends on, diversions of water out of the Rio Grande River and a healthy, sustainable aquifer, just has changed, for me, how my farm operates, and has such a direct impact on what I do at the Rio Grande Water Conservation District as well. Temperatures are warmer, snowpack is less, runoff is different. All those things have contributed to, kind of my definition of what climate change is. I'm Cleave Simpson. I serve as the general manager of the Rio Grande Water Conservation District, and uniquely the state senator representing this area. So I was born and raised right here in Alamosa. I like to tell people I'm the fourth generation of my family to farm and ranch here in the San Luis Valley. Got an engineering degree and left for a little while, but came back. My wife's from here. We graduated high school together, so this is home, and we moved back again permanently in 2013. And we only get 7 inches of precipitation a year, so we're heavily dependent on, snowpack that generates stream runoff that builds aquifer systems. And, I own shares of a mutual ditch company that historically, when I was a kid, those shares and that priority was available routinely into the middle of July, sometimes into August. If I can have water till about mid-June, I feel like it's been a success. That's how much it's changed and directly impacts me. I was a little bit ahead of the curve here on part of my farm where, it was self-motivated, but I went through water court to change the decree for my groundwater to actually put a volumetric limit on it. So it just says over a 5-year period, I can't exceed X amount of water, which forces me to look at and evaluate how much water do I think I'm going to have this year and make some management choices. I have a history of raising alfalfa, the most water consumptive used crop we can grow here, but that's what my dad did, my grandpa did, my great-grandpa. That's what all my capital investment and where all the expertise is. So when you're faced with dwindling supplies, when my surface water runs out in, mid-June or earlier, I have to do this calculation of, I know how much water I have left to apply over the course of the irrigation season, and I have to decide, do I short, 2 parts of the farm water, or do I give one a full supply of water and one a very minimal supply of water? Over the last 5 years, it's more of what other crops can I try to grow here that are less water consumptive, that are economically viable. So, I've tried raising hemp for fiber, and I know I raise it on about half the water as my alfalfa crop, but the economics just don't work out. I can't raise stuff at a loss. I'm here to try to make the place work. I think the media here in particular has taken it very seriously, and my constituents largely are very engaged in a recognition that things are fundamentally different today. When you think about it globally, nationally and globally, I know it's a little bit different conversation and how it impacts people differently, but it does feel like, the trend is to more engaged, thoughtful recognition that, the landscape around us is changing. So I get to farm with my dad and my son, and I have a 4-year-old grandson. There aren't very many professions that afford you that opportunity. But like my son, I have lengthy conversations about, given the changing conditions in the climate, I don't think we can continue to operate this farm the same way my dad did and the way I did up until, 4 or 5 years ago. And it's challenging to think about. I don't think we can just continue to do what we historically have done. It's just not palatable anymore. Our economy, culture, and livelihoods centered around irrigated agriculture, and we don't have the same supplies that we did in the turn of the last century when most of these communities were built and constructed. And think about all the effort that's gone into creating a healthier, sustainable aquifer system, the resources that have gone in that place, and Mother Nature hasn't been very cooperative. And it's created divisions in our community. It's created, expenses. It's made life, incrementally harder here. The stark reality is We don't have a supply of water like we did that supported, 500,000 irrigated acres here. What does the future look like? And thinking about how do you still have viable schools and fire districts and, resilient communities. And, there's a sense of urgency in this community that goes, we have to figure this out. We'll see continuous changes in irrigation efficiencies. There's room to be slightly more efficient in that space. We'll continue in this path of trying to find different crops that are economically viable here that maybe don't depend on so much water. But undoubtedly there will be less irrigated acres in this valley, in this community. This isn't drought anymore. This is truly the aridification of the West, and we're like right in the crosshairs of change. Colorado River routinely gets all the attention and focus about, change in climate and conditions. And I remind my colleagues around the state, you don't have to look far to see what your future looks like. I think this basin in particular has a long history of really coming together to solve difficult problems. We've been the target of water exportation for, since the 1970s. And you talk about an issue that will galvanize a community, again, demonstrates how this community will come together to try to protect what we have here. Have a sense of place here that, I think doesn't always exist in other places. And this is where I'm from, and great pride in my community, and very blessed to have a number of very thoughtful leaders that are willing to sit down and engage and talk about these hard conversations and trying to develop a vision and a sense of optimism about, what the future holds for us.